Hello and welcome to News at 10, our last bulletin for the day on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. We're broadcasting live from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda in Accra. And you can also follow us on our Facebook page and get interactive with us. Let's begin with the major news highlights of the day. Parents to go online and select from the available schools for their wards. Mourning turned up in overwhelming numbers at the premises of the Secretariat over these placement changes. Counsel for the 13 Delta Force members, Frederick Kankambuedu, has threatened to take legal action if the case continues to be adjourned. The case involving the 13 has once again been adjourned to October 10. And the head of shipper services at the Ghana Shippers Authority, Na Densua Aite, says air handling companies at the airports must comply with the new negotiated charges to facilitate air cargo trade. She laments the inability of the companies to work with it will increase the cost of doing business at the airports. And authorities at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital say they will soon demolish all illegal structures on the hospital's land. The reclamation of the encroached lands is a giveaway for the expansion of the facility. Right, those were our major news highlights. Remember, we're streaming live on our Facebook page, and you can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. Up next is the big one. Welcome. Now, the minority in Parliament is questioning the basis for the approval of a 10 million cedis loan from the Agricultural Development Bank by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. The loan to Magdan Shipping Company is for the execution of cocoa contracts. Addressing the media on Tuesday, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu said the action is a breach of the public procurement procedures and called for a probe.
According to the minority, they had in possession a letter dated 9th June 2017, signed by the Finance Minister, giving approval for a loan of 10,459,500 cedis from the ADB to Magdan Shipping Company Limited. This is to enable the company undertake its business operations and, in particular, to execute a supply contract awarded to it by the Ghana Cocoa Board.
We'd like you to probe further whether this contract was awarded through an open, competitive tender process to guarantee and ensure value for money, or it was one approved of what was a sin, sole sourcing. The minister has by this action usurped the authority and functions of the bank, its board of directors, which has curiously not been constituted. So we are concerned.
The minority leader took a swipe at the president for doing the very thing for which he vehemently condemned the NDC government while in opposition.
If you refer to the budget and financial statement of the Minister of Finance, he parroted again that this government will say no to sole sourcing. I would paraphrase and use his exact words when he declared sole sourcing a sin, even though lawful under the laws of Ghana, but to be used rarely and sparingly to ensure value for money for the people of the country and to protect the public interest.
The minority again chastised the government for replacing public servants with his friends and cronies.
When the NDC inherited political power in 2005, we worked with persons whose background were known as practicing, loyal, New Patriotic Party supporters. We did not deny them bread on the altar of a change of political power. That seemed to be the case. And the people of this country must be concerned about the intrusion of the civil and public service, and it's undermined by political partisan consideration rather than merit.
They want the president to direct a reversal of these illegal decisions and acts of malfeasance, as well as take appropriate steps to restore good corporate governance practices in state-owned enterprises, in this case, ADB.
In conclusion, we reiterate the need to appoint board of directors for all government entities without any further delay. Financial institutions, councils of universities, including the technical universities, board of directors of all institutions, so that we can hold them accountable and responsible to policy decisions that the institutions are taking.
The minority warned they would not acknowledge any expenditure of any public institution that does not have a board when brought before Parliament.
Let's get on to Skype now and speak with the president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply, Collins Agyeman-Sarpong. Good evening, Mr. Sarpong, and thank you extremely for your time. Now, the minority has produced a letter indicating that the finance minister wrote to ADB Bank to give out this sum of money to Magdan Shipping Company. And with these claims, would you say the minority is right in the position they have taken?
Yeah, Stephen, let me limit myself to the procurement aspect, the contract aspect that they mention in their statement, because I heard that the Magdan took a loan from ADB and used it to conclude a contract or something. But as a procurement expert, I want to limit myself to the procurement side. In the statement, it was stated that the 10 million contract, but it's a bit difficult for us to know. When you say contract, every procurement person will come further and ask, contract for what? Because as for us, procurement people, we will say that procurement is the technical acquisition of goods, services, and works. So as soon as you hear contract, then we will definitely ask a follow-up question, asking what type of contract for what? Is it goods? What type of goods? Is it service? What type of service? Is it works? What type of works? If we get that clarity, then we can now come out with, okay, this type of item, is it on the market that you can do competition? If it is not on the market, how do you acquire it? Is it coming from only one supplier? So until we get to know what is in the contract in terms of the item, in terms of either works, goods, it will be very difficult to prefer the procurement method and to start punching holes in that.
Right.
So let us know what is in the contract. Then we can pick the procurement aspect from there, whether it's good to use the single source or sole source or national competitive tendering or international. Then we can now,
But Mr. Sarpong, does it not matter that both the Public Procurement Authority and the ADB do not have functioning boards. So under the circumstances, is it right for the Ministry of Finance under his authority to instruct ADB? I mean, I know that the finance minister might not be a shareholder of ADB or anything of that sort. I'm not sure. Is it right for him to issue such a written instruction at a time when there are no boards for the Public Procurement Authority and the ADB?
You know, those are the governance issues. And to tell you the truth, we may have credit officers. How the loan was secured, it will be very difficult from my side as a procurement expert to speak to that, because I know that to secure a loan, a lot of process, you need to go through certain process before the bank will grant a loan, for which I'm not privy to that. So it will be quite difficult. Again, from the governmental side and the governance side, it will also be a bit difficult for me to say that, okay, if in the absence of board, can't anything go on in a particular organization? And if we have an organization, should the organization be operating without boards, and for how long? Those ones, it will be quite difficult for me to speak to that. I think the managers of the economy and the country should be
in a better position. That's fair. But let's understand, in situations of this nature where there are no boards, what usually are the procurement processes that need to be followed in order to make sure that things are right? Because like you rightly said, in the absence of a board doesn't really mean the institution cannot function. But what are the steps and procedures that must be followed when it comes to procurement to ensure that the right things are done?
Okay, normally within the procurement space, we have the approval bodies. And the approval bodies start from the entity tender committee, which normally the head of the entity or the head of the institution usually is the chairperson of the entity tender committee of the organization. And again, I know that if the amount is above certain threshold, it can move to regional, district, or the central tender review committee. Okay? So procurement can still go on without a board, because the entity tender committee is not the same as the board members. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
So things can go on. Once the evaluation is done, the entity tender committee can sit on it, and once it is within their approval limit, they can approve the procurement. If it is above them, it will be moved to central tender review committee to also look at that. So that is how it is. It's right. Not because you have a board or you don't have a board, you can't procure. You can still procure.
Right, Mr. Collins Agyeman-Sarpong, we're grateful for your time. Thank you extremely. Collins Agyeman-Sarpong is the president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supplies. I'm Stephen Enti, and this is News at 10. You can hear us on 3FM 92.7. Let's get interactive. Follow us on our Facebook page and our live streams at 3news.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, a statement issued by the Ghana Journalists Association, GJA, cautioning the media to refrain from destroying local entrepreneurs and businesses in the name of investigative journalism, continues to receive a lot of flack. Many are questioning the commitment of the association to promoting the welfare of journalists and the interest to expose rot in the public sector. The following News Desk report has more.
Apart from the social media backlash of the statement by the GJA, the Media Foundation for West Africa has also issued a statement cautioning the association against what it describes as attempts to undermine investigative and anti-corruption journalism in the country. The Media Foundation for West Africa, in its statement, expresses shock at the GJA for giving such a directive, especially when it failed to provide references to any example that called for the caution. It questions the GJA on the basis of the release, who has been tried and pronounced guilty in and by the media, among many other questions. Anti-Corruption Civil Society has also issued a statement disagreeing with the Ghana Journalists Association. It expresses deep disappointment over the statement signed by its president, Afil Moni. The statement says GJA may knowingly and unknowingly be playing along with businesses which may be involved in allegations of wrongdoing and want to undermine the work of investigative journalists who are exposing alleged wrongdoing. The Dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Audrey Gajapo, also has registered her displeasure about the GJA statement. She says the association has a primary duty to its constituent rather than championing local businesses in the country. A question many journalists are asking is whether the GJA is fighting for the interests of its members or promoting the interests of non-members.
Let's get onto Skype again and speak with the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Edem Senanu, who's joining us. Good evening, Mr. Senanu, and thank you extremely for your time. Now, let's be fair to the Ghana Journalists Association. Which wrong could they have committed by just cautioning its members to continue doing their work, but not to destroy local businesses and entrepreneurs? That appears to me to be a normal caution issued to professionals under your membership if you are GJA.
Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers as well. Yes, I mean, in the normal course of duty, that would have been something that is expected. However, it is very curious and interesting to note that the GJA has hardly ever come up with, and it would have been more useful if it had to do with the protection of the interests of journalists. But at a time where there's one particular business person for whom a number of issues have been highlighted, to come out with a statement like this without any facts about what kind of other business people have been smeared, etc., seems to make us believe that this is targeted at protecting a particular interest and rather the interest and not the interest of journalists.
But isn't it also possible that journalists and the public may have misunderstood the intentions behind the GJA statement?
Well, it is for the GJA to come out and say that we have misunderstood them. I think that the timing and the content of this particular press statement leaves a lot to be desired. And we are already aware of the extreme risks that journalists who are doing investigative work are putting themselves to. So it's rather unfortunate that this is the kind of statement that the GJA came out with.
And 5 anti-corruption groups have expressed disappointment in the statement. Doesn't this suggest that journalists in the country don't know what they are about? I mean, they have to wait for 5 anti-corruption groups to issue a statement condemning the association's rhetoric.
Well, it's unfortunate that the GJA was not taking the bull by the horns and rather protecting its people. But we as civil society have a responsibility, especially where we see that media are doing a good job that supports the cause of Ghanaians. We ought not to be quiet when we notice that this is rather going to go against the interests of the journalist who is just sticking his neck out and trying to ensure that the public purse is protected.
But you get the impression that this statement, as negative as it has been portrayed, has the potential to negatively influence the work of journalists?
Well, you know, if you're a journalist and your parent organization or association does not seem to value what you're doing and does not stand for you in times like this, then you might begin to question whether it is worth sticking your neck out and going to such lengths to uncover issues of fraud and malfeasance. And so we want to let the journalists who are sticking their neck out know that, look, there's a constituency that believes in what you're doing, and we are ready to stand by you if anything should go wrong.
Right, Ms. Adam Senano, thank you extremely for your time. Thank you very much. Adam Senano is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Now, Ghana's Anti-Galamsey Task Force has, within the last month, arrested 294 illegal small-scale miners operating in 3 regions of the country. The illegal miners were arrested in the Eastern, Ashanti, West and Western regions, and the latest arrest Monday was made up of 22 foreigners, 19 Chinese, 1 Burkinabe and 1 Nigerian. However, the task force has appealed to the government to give them the necessary support to effectively fight the menace.
We are having to conduct operations on water bodies, and safety has been our key concern during these operations. We are concerned so much because as we operate on and along these bodies, troops those who are not used to the water bodies, may drown or things of that nature. Some of the areas too are not accessible. We are therefore looking forward to the coming on board fully of the Marine Police and the Ghana Navy. So far, we have conducted some operations with the Ghana Navy, and for the Marine Police, equipment have been deposited at Takoradi. So very soon we will be going on full-scale operation. But we think that we need to have a formal launch of this particular segment of the operation. Prosecutions. We do not have a hand in the prosecution of suspects, and we understand that the wheel of justice grinds slowly. However, we still think that a word probably to the authorities who are concerned with prosecution to fast-track these cases may help the cause of this task force. One other thing too is that once we rotate, the policemen who are involved in packaging the evidence and to help with the prosecutions may not be available, and bringing them back to help may be a tough one. The other challenge is with the media twist sometimes, and if I might say, some of the falsehoods that are peddled against the troops. Some of these incessant attacks and falsehood by the small section, I must say, a small section of the media is a source of concern to troops. But it has not affected their morale at all. They are more than willing, and they know that they have to remain focused. What we wish to do is that from Accra, if this fight can be fought for us so that we can concentrate solely on the operations in the field.
And government will soon launch the Marine Police and the Navy to join Ghana's Anti-Galamsey Task Force, Operation Vanguard, in the conduct of their duties. This follows a plea by the task force when the Inter-Ministerial Task Force Against Illegal Mining paid a working visit to the 3 regions where the 400-man task force are currently operating.
If anybody thinks that we are just doing 3 days, 2 days, like what used to happen before, that person should think twice. We are staying for a very long time. Even when the troops on the ground, the people with the boots on the ground, even when they have exhausted their work, we are going to leave the Marine Police and the Navy for a long time to patrol our waters. Apart from that, we are going to get the soldiers to remain here and make sure that the reclamation exercise takes place and takes place fully. We will not allow anybody to degrade the forest any longer. So that's why we said when the president said, "I put my presidency on the line," he meant it. And we tell you that we mean it. So the exercise will obviously take place this year. The first phase of it will take place this year and then continue next year and the year after. But at the end of the day, we are not just limiting ourselves to even just these 3 regions. We will go out and make sure that we cover other regions, northern region, upper east, upper west, and the whole Ghana. But for now, we are just targeting these 3 regions.
And more than 15 graduates of the School of Hygiene have besieged the Ministry of Local Government to demand their financial clearance. They have given the ministry up to the end of this month to clear them or risk a nationwide demonstration. But the ministry has implored the graduates to exercise restraint and wait for approval from the Finance Ministry.
The disgruntled graduates say they completed their education 5 years ago. Numbering 367 nationwide, they presented their list to the local government ministry for postings. As part of the postings, the ministry will secure financial clearance from the Finance Ministry. However, almost 8 months now, the clearance has not been approved, and this is the cause of their anger. They insist until they receive the clearance, they will not rescind their decision to pick it at the ministry.
Next one is last one to be 3 years or 2 years before they posted them. Even the time that they want to post with the environmental help, not even all, some are still left out. And you see the trauma that we will be passing through if you are in the house for 5 good years and you are bonded.
The Chief Director at the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Kwame Dondio, pleaded for more time with the aggrieved graduates. But the graduates turned down the request, which angered the Chief Director.
You hear that they posted some allied health professionals, and we also part of it. But when we come here, but sir, when we come, they say we are under local government.
Let me caution: we are not in the marketplace, and we mean serious business. If you don't have elders in your houses, we have people with respect here. All these people, they should have been in their offices, working. We are here to deal with a serious problem.
The ministry indicated that since 2012, it has cleared all outstanding graduates for employment.
We received a letter dated 10th August 2017 from Whole School of Hygiene to recruit 100 of their graduates. We immediately wrote a letter dated 10th August 2017 to Ministry of Finance seeking financial clearance.
Currently, the aggrieved graduates have agreed to await for additional months for financial clearance.
News at 10, which came to you live from the News Hub at Desawe. For those of you who listen to us on radio, thank you for leaving your dial at 3FM 92.7. On behalf of the crew here, good night. There is more news at 3news.com.